Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin Raymond.
And blessings, love, and light. And welcome to this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I am your host, Kim Martin Raymond. I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, health and nutrition awareness coach, author, and founder of Redefining You LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And welcome to the How Now podcast. If this is your first time tuning into my show, please go to www.hownowpodcast.com. Pick your favorite podcast platform and be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe. You can also scroll to the bottom of the screen and click on the banner for this week's show, and it will take you to the How Now YouTube channel, where you can like, follow, share, and subscribe there. Make sure you click that notification button so that you always know what's happening in the now. And again, that's www.hownowpodcast.com. Now, tonight's show is a little different because we have a very special guest who is joining me this evening. And we're going to be talking about the power of follow-up. Okay. And of course, as is customary with the How Now podcast, I'm going to have my guest to introduce himself at this time.
Okay. Yes, my name is Jerrod Raymond, native of Chicago, transplant here to Georgia about 15 years now. And I'm owner of a company, a construction company. DVS Remodeling and Repair, try and do full service home remodels, sticking pretty much to the residential arena, but can do other things. And husband to Kim Martin Raymond, the same one that's hosting the show. and that's about it for right now. If there's anything else anybody like to know, we definitely can ask, and I'll be glad to share.
Right. All right. So you heard it right here. The dude to my left or to your right is my husband, Jerrod. So, we came on and we were having a conversation a little while back, and we were talking about the power of follow-up. And we just thought that it may be something that would be interesting to talk about on the show. So, we're just going to have a candid conversation this evening talking about the power of follow-up. Now, as Jerrod said, he is a general contractor, of DVS construction and remodeling. And so his work, calls for him to have to go and, make assessments on different properties. And, sometimes the scope of the scope of the
project
or the project changes, and then he has to have a conversation with the, with his clients to say, okay, well, things have changed, the scope has changed, something is different. So they've talked to them a little bit about, how that process starts out, when someone calls you to come to their home or come to their business and is looking to have some work done. How's that process start?
It can start in several ways. We do some advertising to the general public, so we can sometimes obtain leads either via the website or social media. Oftentimes, though, the most prevalent way that we receive projects and jobs is from word of mouth. That's the strongest avenue that we have, is that people who've seen our work or heard of our work or referred to from others who have received our work and give us a call, and they fortunately they've trust us enough to allow me to give service their homes.
Awesome. I mean, and that's important because one thing you say is word of mouth, and so referrals is important, and so I guess follow up is important there because if you're not following up with the client to see if they're satisfied with your work, then you don't know what they're going to say to the next person who may, inquire about the work that was done or, the upgrades that were done to their property or to their business, So follow-up is important in that aspect, right?
Yes, it definitely is. In fact, not just in that aspect, interestingly, and maybe not so widely known, is that in this business, the entire project is one big follow-up from when somebody originally has an idea. Then there has to be a follow-up to expand on that. Then we have things built in for follow-up, whether it's a written communications, a contract, a verbal understanding, a site visit, a phone call, text messages, project plans, drawings. There's just all kinds of redundancies and follow-ups that just are necessary to ensure that the job can go about as smoothly as it can. But yeah, but to answer your question more specifically, from referrals, um, somebody trusts somebody enough to give them a number to, hey, I got a guy, right, that can do the work. He's competent and he can get it done. And he's going to come in your house. He's going to do the work. He's going to do it well. He's going to be reasonable, hopefully, in price. He's going to not walk away with all your furniture when the job is done. So there's a lot of different aspects to that, and the follow up part of it is this typically is the first interaction with that person on a business level, and so you just have to set expectations. And the only way that we see that we can do that is to continually keep lines of communications open and just keep asking questions and following up and making sure, are you okay? Just being redundant in a lot of things that we do and say, just to make sure things go smoothly.
Right. I mean, and you make an important point there. The lines of communication definitely have to remain open so that way there's no, there's more concrete, things that are being said or things that are being done. And it's not a matter of, the person not understanding what the scope of the job is or not understanding, materials. And so I know those things are kind of important as well. It's important for them to understand that certain materials, their availability, whether that material that they're selecting will actually work. And then also another thing that I know, because I'm your wife, is that whole aspect of making sure that, whatever the scope of the job is, that if it requires them to have any type of paperwork done or any type of permissions or certificates that have to be done, because what happens in those instances where people are not familiar with that, then they wind up asking to have walls removed or things done like that. And then what happens? Stop order, right?
Yes, absolutely. And what we've come to find out is there's a couple of different things um, that occurs in a process of a project. You have a person that at the end of the day, they want their space to look and function the way they have it in their mind. Um, and that's it. Now we come in as a professional to come in and say, well, here's how we can make that happen. So we have to, a lot of the follow up is about education, right? They're looking towards us to be the professionals. So I need to tell them, here's your options. Here's what this material will do versus that material. Here's what this will cost versus that will cost. Here's how this will look versus this one. This is how long this will last versus that one. There's a lot of complexities that you're just not going to be able to just hope that you're on the same page with the customer and not just the client. This is everybody. This is everybody in the team. You mentioned different types of permits and things you need, so the city can get involved, the county can get involved, the utility companies can get involved. It can get pretty complex, and we're not even talking about some big major rebuild of half the house. We could be talking about just updating a bathroom. And there's a lot of moving pieces. And again, because usually the client's perspective is just maybe simple, faceted in just a couple of simple terms of function. So if I know I can touch on all three of those and continue to ask those questions in those three arenas, we have a good chance that most questions, and most projects can go as expected. And then even then,
I was gonna say we lost you for a little. You froze up for a little bit when you were talking about those three things. So could you repeat those for me?
okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I did see that it said it was getting unstable. Yeah, we're gonna have a conversation with some follow up with our internet provider. but but yeah, what I was just saying is that there can be, from a customer standpoint, usually what they're looking for is usually three things. They just want it to function, look good, and cost something within what a reason, right? And so those areas we need to address constantly to make sure the project goes smoothly.
Right, right.
So it's one big follow up. In fact, my job as I move up in scaling the business or levels of hierarchy within my business, I move further and further away from the work and more on the phone. I'm probably greater than 50% now on the phone than working. And in a real pure environment of where the business is thriving, in a capacity that bigger businesses do, I won't be working physically, and I'll be on the phone the whole time, or in some sort of communications, right? Whether it's emails, meetings, whatever form of communications you want to, I don't know, smoke signal, whatever we can get our hands on, we'll be in some form of communications and follow up as the levels and the hierarchies grow.
Right. And yeah, I mean, and that's just in, talking about in construction, but these same principles are true when you have people who are entrepreneurs, people who are, have their own business. And it's so important for them to conduct those follow-ups to make sure that they're meeting the needs of their clients or their customers. They need to make sure that they're, following up with them and that they're actually doing what's necessary. Just like as a trainer, I always make sure that I'm doing a needs assessment. Am I meeting the needs of my clients when I'm going out and conducting trainings? Are those trainings, going to satisfy what it is that they're seeking to train on? Am I covering things in a way that, when they walk away, they have takeaways. They're not just saying, oh, well, that wasn't really quite what we were looking for. So it's definitely making the ask. But I also wanted to focus in on, from the customer's perspective or from the client's perspective, yes, our expectation of the person that's providing the service is that they are, the professional. They're going to tell us what it is that we need to know, and we're going to be okay. But it's also the responsibility of the client to ask questions if they're not sure, or if they're not quite, clear on what the expectation is, so that way they're not, thinking that everything is okay and that everything is going to go that way. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, that's not quite what I wanted. And I'm sure that you probably had an instance where that has happened, where that the client has thought that you were going to do one thing and then all of a sudden there was a misunderstanding. Can you give an example of something where that happened?
Yeah, that's actually pretty common. What occurs is that, again, the client has ideas in their mind of what they want something, how something needs to work, and how it needs to look. You think from our standpoint that we're addressing those questions, and this is not something that we can always give them a visual on. Sometimes we can provide a picture of the item they're interested in, and they say, "Yeah, that's it." But then when you bring that item, let's say it's a kitchen sink, and it looked great in the store, and when we put it in, they're like, I thought it should have been this way. In specific, what happens the most is paint selection. Customers have a great idea when they go to Home Depot and Lowe's. They get 400 and 500 books of paint samples, and they put them up to their curtains and their couches, their floors, their walls, and everything else. They Home Depot and Sherwin-Williams, some of the bigger boys, have even virtual rooms where you can paint walls and things like that and kind of see the colors. And then the person comes and we order everything. Everything's a go. We understand. We've labeled the cans, what goes on what surfaces. We start to paint. Not even in a good hour. That's not gonna look the way I thought it should look. Yeah. And it's a stop job right then and there. With paint that usually we can't return. Workers on staff getting paid whether they're working or not. You know, and at the end of the day, you know, the client had an idea and they wanted it to look and feel and behave in a certain way, and that's not what happened. Not even after talking about paint selections, not even after talking about sheens, not even talking about the paint qualities and the colors and the lasting and the reflections and how it's going to look in the sample book, how it looks in the virtual space online, and then you put it on the walls and we lost something. And that's with 5 and 6 communications, right? And so that's not uncommon. We even build in for it. Sometimes we come in and we buy the quart and we paint a surface and we ask them, hey, you know, I don't know where you are right now, come take a look before we have your whole house looking canary green, looking like Big Bird, you know, like our wall back here. And that's actually not the color that I envisioned. We know we wanted a yellow. It came out a little bit yellower than I thought, if that's a word. And it's grown on me, but you know, that wasn't the initial thought in my mind, you know.
But you make a good point. I mean, you know, of saying, okay, when we get to a place like that where we have a communication and we think that we have an understanding, and then all of a sudden it's not quite what we look, then what's the process that happens after that? And that's a wonderful question for a consumer or a client to ask. What happens if we get this paint and it's not quite what I thought it should be? You know, what is the consequence, or what can we do? Or can we do a little sample, like you said, and just paint a little bit and see how that's going to look? So that, you know, before we do the whole thing, these are questions that sometimes even as clients or customers, we have to take the onus to ask, you know, just to say, okay, well, what happens if I don't like this? You know, and I say that because, you know, I'm thinking, you know, about, you know, we're talking about, you know, things that are happening inside a home when you're doing the work that you do for clients, but I'm thinking about in other arenas as well. Because I'm thinking about, you know, I recently had a facial. I had a facial done, and what I did was, you know, I said, oh, she did a great job. Everything looked great. And she was like, okay, and you know, you can come and we could do another treatment for you in another week or so. And I was just like, okay, great, that's awesome. But then I thought to myself, wait a minute now. I asked a question. I said, all right, so when I go home tonight, what do I need to do? Because I would have continued doing what I normally do, which is wash my face with the you know, store-bought cleanser, and you know, I would have put shea butter on my face. And she was like, no, don't do that. You know, it'll clog your pores, and that particular brand that you're using is going to, you know, that's like putting Dawn dishwasher liquid on your face. I was like, what? But had I not asked the question, the follow-up question of what do I need to do once I get home, it would have totally negated everything that she did as far as the steam treatment and the cleansing and the, you know, things that she did to my face for over an hour. And then I would have just come home and slathered shea butter on my face and would have totally defeated everything that she did. So I say all that to say it's so important that we ask, you know, follow-up questions. What do I need to do moving forward? If we go and have a service done, what do I need to do moving forward to make sure that I'm continuing to achieve what it is that I wanted that treatment to do? You know, I was having issues with my face. I wanted to have treatments done, and they're going to be repeated treatments. But what do I have to do when I walk out of that door? Just like with your clients, babe, if there are things, you know, what do they need to do? What is the part that they're going to need to play? Do they need to be available to come, like you said, to look and see if the paint is the correct paint? Do they need to come and see if this cabinetry that they picked or this sink that they picked is something that's going to work in that space. Are they available to do that, or do you just have carte blanche to do whatever it is that you all agreed on? And then if they don't like it, what's the consequence? So I think the reason, like I said, why we're having this conversation is just to really talk about the importance of following up and really saying, okay, am I helping to make this service that I'm having done, am I helping to make it successful, or am I setting myself up for a disaster? And if I don't like it, or if there's something, what is the consequence? We're so quick to sign off on things or to, say, okay, just do the service. And then we walk away and then we turn around and we're like, okay, so now what do I do? And sometimes we're afraid to ask, right?
Right. Yeah. The thing that I've come to learn is that experience can be probably your best asset in a follow-up situation. As you perform more and more interactions with whatever it is that's going on, whether it's dealing with that type of person or that group of people or that particular product or that animal, whatever it is that you're dealing with, the repetitive nature of it tends to produce outcomes that hopefully you will have some questions about. And then now you can formulate those questions and say, the next time I deal with the pit bull, I probably should ask, does he have teeth? You know what I mean? Because that last one bit me, And so you tend to say, okay, I've had this experience, and so now that wasn't quite what I wanted to occur, but that experience has taught you that I better find out next time how this is going to play out. And that's really the end goal. One of the things I can appreciate the most and is being able to, for myself personally, is being able to probably swallow a little bit of professional pride or what have you, to allow somebody to ask the questions that you would have thought they should have known already. That can kind of give you the background on where to start your line of questionings or follow-ups. Some of my background that I didn't share earlier is that my actual degree is in IT. And when I was doing some desktop support early on, we used to troubleshoot with, is the unit on?
Right.
That's a pretty basic question that I think most people would have assumed that it's on, and then so it's like we find out it's not on. So we have to, reel it back. Let's ask them, is it plugged up? Is the light on the side or on the top lit? You have to ask these questions just to get past basics. And then once you ask those follow-up questions, okay, now that the unit is on, what do you see, or what is the behavior? Because oftentimes the behavior is what prompts the call. It's like, I can't get online. Okay, so the logical thought process of that would have been, let's start with your browser. You can't get online. You're trying to connect to the internet. We're going to bypass all the basic stuff. But we were taught, no. Okay, is the unit on and functioning as normal? You start there. So that kind of just a long way of saying that experience brings that appreciation on the follow-up questions, because as much as you want to be able, we used to have a phrase, you want to dummy proof something, along comes a better dummy. And so we got to dummy proof it even more, and that's just not always going to be possible. So so in order to reach that balance of not trying to condescend or make somebody feel inept or incapable or whatever the phrase is, you don't want them to feel like, oh my God, he's talking to me like a child. But at the same time, you do want to be able to get as close as you can to the beginning lines of questions, follow-ups, right, so that way you can quickly speed up and move to the desired outcome. I kind of, and I'll shorten it up, a little bit more brief, but I kind of appreciate being a dad in that respect. I got several children, I got five, and 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 what that has taught me is that because they're so close in age, just a span of 10 years or so, I I know that I cannot ask the same questions to the same situation to each one of them. And they teach you very, very quickly that when you say go to your room or do a certain task, it's not the same directive in their mind to each child. One child may take it like go to your room means now. The other child means as soon as I'm finished watching TV. The other one's like, well, I'm doing something. Or another one may be like, I didn't hear him at all. I'm not listening or heard him at all. And so follow up becomes crucial to be able to the coupling the experience um, gives you that ability to say, okay, this is what I need to happen. I don't exactly understand my audience just yet, so I'll start here. Right. They'll give me a response, and my experience says, oh, we're here, not there. Right. And then the follow-ups can continue there, and we can get to a desired outcome.
I love that, and I mean that makes perfect sense. And I think about that from the the person who's providing the services perspective, because yes, they have the experience because this is something that they've done repeatedly, or they've done it with different variables. And so yes, experience has taught them that there are certain things that they need to make sure that they bring to that person's attention because it's something that they've seen happen before. But then I also think of it from the consumer's perspective, and where you said something very early on that was important too, is it's about education. If there is something that you do not know, do a little bit of the research first so that way you know what to ask, because sometimes we don't. We just don't know what to ask, or we don't know, or take the initiative to say, okay, well, I'm not really clear on that. Expound on that. Tell me what you mean by that. Where you're asking the actual question or you're doing the research. I think about it. I had a doctor's appointment, and one thing I do is, you go, you make the appointment, you sit there sometimes for an hour or longer, and then you go in for 5 minutes, and then they're telling you, okay, do this, and that, and then they send you on your merry way. The whole point of this, I always make sure before I even go into the doctor's office, I write down questions. I have pain. I've had some tingling in my fingers and in my feet. What does that mean? I start asking questions like that, because whatever your copay was, I'm going to ask that many dollars worth of questions. That's what I'm going to do. If I pay a $30 copay, I'm asking $30 worth of questions. and my doctor is going to sit there and answer those questions, because, I'm not, it's not like it's a little conveyor belt where you're going to see me, okay, next. That's not the case. The point is that I'm coming in, I'm having certain conditions. They ask you all of these questions. How are you feeling? Are you depressed? Are you happy? Are you sad? But are you asking questions, follow-up questions, in response to that? Now, some people will say, oh, well, yeah, everything is fine. But what happens for those people who say, when they ask you those questions, and they say, do you feel hopeless today? And you say, yes. Now what? Because now I want to know. So when that doctor comes in, I'm expecting them to address that, because if I have an issue, now what are you going to do? Are you going to refer me to a psychologist, psychiatrist? Are you going to ask those follow-up questions? Or is it just the yes and no, and we don't expound on that? Now, you see, in my instance, I have, I'm okay. So I haven't really had to be like, well, no, that's the situation. Or just like when they ask you those questions about pain, what's your pain level today? Is it a 0 or a 10? And then you tell them what it is. And then your hope is that they tell you what to do. And sometimes what happens is, the doctor will say, okay, I need for you to do this. Okay, now we have to ask follow-up questions. My doctor may say, okay, I need for you to take, I mentioned to my doctor, I have some tingling in my fingers and in my toes because I was diabetic. So I'm concerned about that. Is this neuropathy or anything? And she was like, no, it's sometimes it's a B12 deficiency. So I'm going to need for you to start taking some B12. Then my question is, how long do I need to do that? You see, because sometimes you don't ask those follow-up questions. You just say, okay, And then we take a B12. Well, am I taking it for the rest of my life? Am I taking it for 3 months? Am I taking this until I come back and see you again? Am I taking this for a week? You know, you have to ask those follow-up questions, because sometimes they just tell you, okay, this is what you need to do. But sometimes it requires them telling you, you only need to do this for XYZ amount of time. Just like if you have a virus or something and they tell you just take the medication for 7 days, then stop. Some of them tell you take it until it's gone, but it's asking those follow-up questions when you're not sure. And I think sometimes that's what happens. We get to feeling some kind of way. Like we were discussing, babe, that people think, that they appear to be ignorant if they ask questions. And it's not a dumb question. It's a question that I need to know what I'm doing or how I'm supposed to do this. Or if you tell me to do something, how do I go about doing it? And so many times I've asked that question and was like, oh, I didn't realize that, because I would have gone home and done it totally wrong, if I asked that follow-up question. So, it's important, that education piece and taking time to go and research and making sure that you're writing down the questions. Because if you're old like me, you forget everything. I write it down, because you get up in there and all of a sudden you get tongue-tied, or they say something and you get off on a tangent, and then you walk out of there and you're like, oh man.
Oh man.
I didn't ask, or I forgot to ask. Oh man. Yeah. Write it down. Write it down. When you're thinking about it, sometimes we think about things like, I wonder about that. Write it down. Because when you don't, you forget, because something else comes along and it draws your attention, and then you forget about what it was that you were going to question, and stop long enough and just be like, well, before we leave, let me check my notes and make sure that I got all of my questions answered. That's what I do every time when I go to the doctor. Let me make sure I've got all of my questions answered. I'm not going to be rushed, because I paid you a copay, and I'm going to take as long as it takes me to get my questions answered. But they're going to take the money regardless, right? So I'm going to make sure that I'm asking the questions. So that education piece is important too. It's that experience on one side, and it's that education piece on the other side, right?
Absolutely. And, an inquisitive nature is very helpful in that situation, right? Just being like the cat, always into something, wanting to know what's going on, just always nosy, always, it's actually a behavior that helps you in the long run. Maybe on the short run, it can be frustrating to you or the other person on the receiving end of all of these questions or behaviors of seeking things. But it helps, because once you can get to that type of thought process where you just know that you don't know everything. Right. Nothing worse than a smart aleck. The smart ass just always knows everything, and then just got stuff messed up constantly. You should love a humble person that just says, hey, and asks a question. That's the best person you have. We always say, like in our business, I would rather have, like from an employee standpoint, I'd rather have a green person that has an open mind and a great attitude than a skilled person that just knows everything. Right. Because at the end of the day, you can't teach that skilled person anything. He knows the best way. I've been doing this 20 years. You can't tell me squat. But that green person, he's moldable. He doesn't come with his good or bad behaviors. You can tell that person, this is exactly how I need you to be. This is exactly what you need to learn. That if they're curious by nature, they're going to say, I know I don't know everything. They're going to go look. And that's all we ask. Know that there's unknown unknowns. Right. I don't even know what I don't know. I think we were talking about yesterday back on the health tip. I was talking about the restless leg, right? I sit down and I'm shaking my leg. Leg is just going 100 miles an hour. I go to sleep, rocking back and forth, 100 miles an hour. And thought this was just, I see my pops do it. I see other people just sit there and, just wiggle their arms and do all kind of crazy stuff. Just restless. Kid stuff. Never grew out of it. Come to find out, that is a condition, like a bona fide, honest to goodness condition. And I discovered that during a sleep study. It's connected to some people who have that snore, have apnea, interrupted sleep, things like that. I don't think there's a connection, a causal, but there's a connection. There's some correlations there between those things. And I would have never known. That's an unknown unknown. It's like something's going on. Didn't think it was a problem, so I never looked to see why. Hey, I just shake my leg sometimes. No big deal. And come to find out it's an issue. So if you can get to that point in your life or behavior where you're just like always curious, always wondering, hey, is this normal? You know what? I walked over there and this happened, or I went to bed, or just anything. Just question everything all the time. You don't have to always verbalize them and have everybody thinking that you need meds, but but you can at least always be curious. Go and do your research. We're in a beautiful age of life where
we're in an age of technology where
information is at your fingertips. You can pick up the phone. You can get online. You can talk to people outside. People are still friendly. They're willing to share.
Anybody,
and just get this information and all of that. Just because at the end of the day, what you want is your situation to be maybe first understood and become either successful or alleviated. That's all you want. I just want this thing to work out. Maybe that's the easiest way to put it. I just want this to work out. That's all.
Right. And then make an excellent point there, because it's about, what is the end result? What is it that I hope to accomplish from this? Or what is my expectation from this? Like I said, I went to go and get a facial. Mine wasn't just to go and get a facial so I can look cute to go out. Mine was, okay, I'm having some issues with my skin. I need to address those issues. So my end goal is, okay, I'm going to continue to go because I want to, figure out what is the best way to care for my skin. So I've got to ask the questions and not just assume. Sometimes people just want the service, but what can I do to keep the benefits of those services going? If I go and have a massage, what can I go? Is it important for me to stretch afterwards? What are some things that I can do to stop my body from continuing to be stiff? And not have to come back repeatedly and get the same service done. The one thing that was beautiful that my esthetician said when I went to go and have my facial, she said, my goal is to teach you how to properly take care of your skin so that way you don't have to keep coming back to me for the same treatments over and over again, because I've shown you what it is that you need to do to take care of your skin. And once you take care of your skin and you do a beautiful job on it, people are going to notice and they're going to say, hey, Kim, your skin looks great. And then I'll be able to say, hey, my girlfriend, Leslie does a fabulous job on, doing facials and teaching you how to care for your skin. Now I've made a referral and she doesn't need to keep getting my money. Now she's going to get new clients and she's going to get their clients from them and their referrals and so on and so on. So you're creating behaviors and you're creating, situations where everyone is going to benefit from there, but not that you're doing the same thing over and over and over again and not and expecting a different result. What do they say? That's the definition of insanity, right? When you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you're expecting a different result. No. So what is it that you're doing? What is it you hope to get from there? And how can you grow? And this is where you're asking questions. What do I need to do to keep this going? If I go to a chiropractor and I have issues with my back, what do I need to do? Are you going to give me some exercises that I can do on my own when I'm not with you? Or do I have to wait until I come back and see you next time and I'm having the same issues? So that's the thing. It's wanting to get a different result and taking the time to make sure that we're asking the questions that are going to get us the results that we want in the end. Right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it doesn't always have to be a question. It can just be a statement. Sometimes you can adjust the things you say to provoke a different result, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times you can just, if it was like a teacher-student environment, you can have them repeat it. So you tell me what I just tell you in your own words. You know what I mean? You can you might not do that with an adult so much, but you definitely would do it with a child and be like, okay, I just gave you a lot to digest. Okay, you tell me what you just got out of what I said. Hey, nothing like a teacher teaching lets you know that you've understood. And in that way now, when you've heard that regurgitated to you, they repeated what you said, and you're like, you got it, perfect. And it's even better when they don't do it verbatim. When they use their words and their terms, then oh, they really got it. He took what you said, they digested it, they turned it around, they put it in their words. That follow-up question, as simply as say, hey, just tell me, so what did I say? Tell me what I said. That could be something you can incorporate. Do you follow? And you don't want to use things that are cliche-ish. Yeah, you don't want to always use something that's cliche. You got me? You understand? Because people just say yes, right? But you can say, all right, so you follow these steps, right? And
what are your takeaways? What did you get from this?
What is your takeaways? What is when you're in a more formal environment?
In the training arena, that's what we say. What was your takeaway? What did you learn from this, or what was something that you gleaned from this, or did you have an aha moment? What was something that stuck?
Absolutely.
And those are the things that will give you some clues on whether the person actually received what it was that they expected to get.
Right.
So those things it's so important that we, like I said, that we take time to look at our experiences, that we take time to educate ourselves, and that we ask the questions that we need to ask, those follow-up questions that are going to bring us closer to understanding what it is that's happening, whether it be, for us personally, whether it be for us in business. What are we seeking to achieve? That's always going to be the question. We hear that all the time. What is your why? Why are you doing what it is that you're doing? And that's even going back to being a child. Children ask that all the time. Why? Why? Why are we doing it? Why? Millennials, why? Everybody wants to know why. And we have to be able to articulate why it is that we're doing the things that we're doing and what it is that we hope to achieve as a result of it. And so, all of this conversation just to say, ask those follow-up questions. Do not put yourself in a position where you're fearful or you feel inadequate if you ask a question. We all had to ask questions to learn things even as children. We didn't know everything. And how often do we hear the cliche now on social media? I was today years old when I found out this or that. There are so many things that we don't know, but we are in an information age where we can find out things and research things and think about podcasts just like this one. This show is just to talk about how we live in the now and some of the things that are going on, but we're just scratching the surface, just enough for you to say, I never thought about that. Let me go and further research it. So it's just being able to put the little bug in our ears, because there's always something that we don't know about. And the only way that we're going to find out is if we ask those follow-up questions, if we ask, so that way we can learn more about what it is that we're seeking to learn, but so much comes from that. So many benefits come from that, from opening those lines of communication, and you wind up really getting to achieve or have, what it is that you were looking for accomplished. And so, it's not like there's that level of disappointment because you were clear, and it doesn't mean that sometimes things don't happen. They do, but then that's another question as well. What happens if this doesn't work out? What is it? Is it going to be something that's going to cost me? Is it going to be something that's going to affect me negatively? That's why we ask also, like when I went to my doctor, I asked her, she wanted to put me on a certain medication. I asked her immediately, what are the side effects? What are some of the side effects that you've seen in some of your other patients? And she was like, that's a great question. This is what I've seen. And so that gave me some additional information so that I can make an informed decision as to whether that was something that I wanted to take or not take, Yeah. So those things are important. Those follow-up questions are important because those are things that can keep us from getting in situations that may not be, helpful for us, but may be harmful, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different levels to it and the follow-ups. Whether it's in a business to to maximize your profits, or in a relationship to make sure that things are as happy as they can be, or you just want to ask these questions or develop these behaviors where you do something or you say something or you ask something that gives you the optimal results. You want it to work out, you know. And I struggle just on a personal tip is trying to use the best choice of words in the correct order, emphasis. There's a lot of there's thousands of words in the language. I forget how many, 9, 10,000 words, and to use the least amount of words, the most effective. What is it? There's a term in science for that. The most effective unit or something like that. So where you're only getting the best bang for your buck. There's plenty of studies out there that will tell you how long the average human attention span is. I think mine is like 22 seconds. And I'm the guy who double speeds and fast forwards TikToks. So a TikTok is already a short thing. I'll hold it, double speed it, and swipe within 5 or 10 seconds most of the time. So I don't have the attention span that probably is required to thoroughly grasp everything. Thoroughly is probably the key word there. But what I can do is I can make sure on the flip side, since I can talk with the best of them, is to make sure that because I've been accused of, even with all the long speech, communications is lost. And so I have to learn to make sure I'm using the most effective process. Whether, and like in my business, that's great, right? We have drawings, we have contracts, we have text messages, we have phone calls, we have meetings, we have stand-ups at the location. We do a lot of different things, 5, 6, 7 different processes, or just to make sure that it's going to work out. At the end of the day, it's going to work out. And then guess what? And then sometimes it doesn't. And then we get all the way back to the drawing board. Then there's this whole big ass meeting about what happened. how do we jack this up? Sometimes it's our fault. Sometimes it's clearly the client's fault. But either way, it's our fault, because not our, meaning my company, but our, as whatever the two parties engaged in a communications, it's our fault. Somehow they didn't ask. They didn't do, we didn't ask, we didn't do, something happened. And at the end of the day, you got green on your walls when you wanted yellow. And, I don't know. So again, just trying to be contrite and compressed into using the best words. And it's not always the biggest words that has one huge meaning, just something that gets through to the other person to invoke the response that you need. I need to know, are you going to the store now, not tomorrow? And so the question needs to be like, hey babe, are you going to the store tonight? And then you will answer it with a yes. And then I can ask the follow-up question, well, while you're there, can you grab me some lightly salted potato chips? And then you'll say yes. You should say yes. Yeah. and that's how it works. And guess what? You come back with it and it worked out. That's all we want. We want it to work out. We don't want the conversation to be like, you going to the store? Yeah. And then they thinking tomorrow you're coming back, you're waiting on something, and then they disappear, they come back and they don't have the chips. And then you're like, where are the chips? Oh, I didn't go to the store. I thought you said you were going to the store. No, that's tomorrow. I went to the beauty supply store today.
Right.
You're like, how did we lose that? How did it not? Right, I just wanted it to work out.
Things get lost in translation. And so you said
every time
that we ask those follow-up questions. Are you doing that now? Is that something that you could do? Do you mind doing X, Y, and Z? And not assuming that because the person is doing that automatically they're going to, meet your needs if you haven't expressed them properly. So there's a lot. The follow-up is something that is so critical and so important to us being able to successfully communicate with each other, for us to successfully provide services, to have successful relationships. when we're clear on what it is that we're doing. Sometimes, the water gets murky. Sometimes there's a whole lot of gray area, and we have to, start to, clear up some of those blurred lines so that way we're providing, what it is that we need, and that person is getting what it is that they want as well. So,
Absolutely.
with that, I know you and I can talk for days and days and days. But I just thought it was important that we take some time out to talk about follow-up and the importance of it, and how, we need to educate ourselves, and how we need to, look at our experience and see how that can help us in providing services and getting the best services that we can get. Make sure that we're asking the questions and that we're clear. Make sure that we're writing things down so that way we don't forget. Making sure that we're sharing our experiences and that we're telling people, this is something that in my experience, in the work that I've done, this has been the response that I've gotten when I'm asked about this. Sometimes you offer that information. Sometimes you have to ask them, what has been your experience with your other customers? Has anybody else used this particular paint color? Have you seen this color used before? Is this something that's new? Ask the questions. Ask the questions, and you don't hear if that person is not bringing those responses to you or bringing those examples to you. Ask for them, and hopefully, if they are professionals, they'll be able to provide those answers. So, are there any final words that you want to leave with our listeners about follow-up?
Yeah, the follow-up is just a crucial tool that you need in your everyday life and your future life. What I kept using the phrase workout. You want it to work out, and so ask the follow-up question: why? Why do you want it to work out? Who cares if it works out or not? Because contrary to some conventional thought, is that what we don't have a lot of is time. Time is a commodity. We all got the same. We've all heard the adages about how everybody got the same amount of time. What you do with yours, what I do with mine, but none of us got a lot of it. Your perspective may think that we do, but because you're bored or you're not busy, but it is a function of time, because when things work out, it can be translated into not being wasted time. And nothing worse in some people's lives, if you're busy or you have things to do, than to waste that time. Just quick little example that you and I, we go to the islands, Haiti sometimes, and oftentimes, and we go in and donate our times and volunteer for the disadvantaged, underprivileged in different countries. And what I see oftentimes is the processes that have been traditional do not lead to efficiencies that would make things work out. When we go to Haiti and you see that they have to grow the beans, grow the rice, catch the chicken, pluck the chicken, go to the market, do that. And this is just for dinner. A woman or man, whoever's preparing the meal, can invest their entire day in meal prep, or washing clothes, or going to the market, or doing things that for us is just go to the store and pick it up. Just go grab something to eat. And that follow-up of, hey, can you prepare this while I go do that? A follow-up question will make things work out, which is then a function of time. It's a function of time, and we can all live better if we just say, hey, what about this? Can you do that? So we can all work out. And so I guess the short answer is develop the inquisitive behavior, the inquisitive nature and behavior to ask things, to make things work out so that you can save time and enjoy your life. You don't have to eat a certain way the hard way. There's efficiencies you can get from the way you eat, from the way you exercise, from the way you run your relationships, your businesses, and everything, your vehicles, your homes, and you can have a better life if you just get that follow-up out the way. That's it.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you so much
Mhm.
for hanging out with me this evening and talking about
Yeah.
the importance of follow up. And it's always cool to have your right hand man, your spouse, the person who you care about,
Mhm.
come on and chop it up with you about things that are happening in our now. These are things that we're seeing happening around us. That this is a microwave society. You want everything quick, fast, and in a hurry. And sometimes we have to stop long enough to ask the questions because that's where, it could become a stumbling block instead of a stepping stone. So we always want to make sure that we're doing that. We're taking the time to enjoy so that we can make our lives better. So again, babe, thank you so much for being with me and out and for sharing and imparting your wisdom. I'm blessed to have you with me, to share that with me every day. And so everybody doesn't always get a chance to see that. But
I know. They're like, who's that dude?
right. He actually exists. He's not a figment of
Yeah,
my
I exist.
imagination. He's real. So there he is.
Like, rah, 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 rah.
Right. Take a screenshot. But again, thanks so much, y'all. And honey, I always ask my guests, how they're living in the now. What is something that you do to live in the now? What is something that you do that helps to center you?
That helps to center me. I understand that people are different and people are complex. I don't have to pigeonhole people into one way that, oh my God, he's a great person. He's a pastor, but yet he got caught stealing the church money. Hey, those are two different situations. The word he gives is not necessarily how he runs his finances. And I can't categorically discard. There can be some red flags that I walk into things with a little bit more of a raised eyebrow than usual. But how I live in the now is I understand these complexities of people, and I make sure that I always have a different route. It's like I believe in a lot of different things that are kind of all cousins. I believe in trust and verify. I believe in double checking. I believe in plan B. I believe in follow up. And all of these are in an attempt to just make sure that, hey, I understand that things can go left real fast sometimes. And to just live in the now, I'm not that get upset guy. I'm not the anal dude. I'm not flipping the bird on the highway. I'm not cutting you off. I'm not pulling the pistol at the grocery store. I'm doing none of that because I've already kind of thought that through. That this may or may not work out the way I wanted to, and you go this way, I got another route for this to achieve my goals, and
And
so
it helps to make things a little less stressful, you know?
absolutely, I don't
Yeah.
need that.
Okay. He
I
is
don't
a
need that. So I live in it now, but just by making sure I think it all through.
he is laid back like no other.
Laid back. I'm like the leaf in the wind. Just blow with the wind, baby.
He blows with the wind. He's right. He is
Yeah.
right. He is right. So like I said, just wanted to come on and let you guys think about that. That's just something to chew on, something that you can take with you as you're, carrying your thoughts through the rest of the week and as you are addressing how you're living your life, how you're living your journey. And we're always interested in making sure that we're adding tools to our toolbox so that way when situations arise, we know how best to address them. We're never going to use a pencil to unclog a sink, or we're not going to use a paintbrush to change a tire. We're going to have the tools that are necessary for us to use when situations arise. And hopefully you've got a couple of tools that you can use, with regards to follow up that are going to help you, like Jay said, to live a more successful and fruitful life. Okay, and with that will do it for this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. Babe, you're always welcome back. You already know that. You're here. You can sneak in anytime you want. But until we see you the next time, say peace.
Peace.